Hey there and welcome to Scandal Steep. Florence Ballard, the powerhouse singer who was once the heart and soul of the Supremes, never fully recovered from the harsh reality of the music industry that propelled her to fame but ultimately left her behind. She passed away at the age of just 32, forgotten by the very industry she helped shape, and her tragic story serves as a poignant reminder of the complex, often unforgiving world of show business. Born on June 30, 1943, in Detroit, Florence grew up in a family of 13 children, where music and love filled their modest home. Her father, Jesse Ballard, worked long hours at an automobile factory to support his large family. Despite his grueling schedule, he always found time to play guitar and sing, sharing his passion for music with Florence. From a young age, Florence absorbed the melodies and rhythms her father shared, her voice growing stronger and more powerful with each passing year. It wasn't long before neighbors began to notice the girl with the extraordinary voice, and Florence quickly became known for her remarkable talent. Living in the Brewster housing projects, Florence was constantly surrounded by music. She sang along to the latest hits on the radio, and before long, her own voice rose above the noise of daily life. Florence's natural gift for singing was undeniable, and by her early teens, she began performing in school choirs, music classes, and wherever she could find an audience. It was clear to everyone around her that she was destined for something special. Her voice stood out, and as her talent blossomed, she caught the attention of local singers Eddie Kendricks and Paul Williams, who would later go on to form the Temptations. In the late 1950s, Florence was introduced to Milton Jenkins, who managed the Primes, the group that would evolve into the Temptations. Impressed by Florence's voice, Jenkins invited her to perform alongside the Primes at various events. He quickly recognized that she was not just another good singer, she was something rare, a talent that could propel a group to stardom. Jenkins suggested the idea of forming a girl group, and Florence eagerly agreed, beginning the search for other members. She reached out to her friends, including Mary Wilson, Betty McGlown, and Diana Ross, and with their family's support, the group formed under the name the Primettes. In the spring of 1959, the Primettes began their journey, with Florence taking the lead vocal position. They spent countless hours rehearsing, perfecting their harmonies and routines. The group was determined, practicing after school and on weekends despite the struggles they faced. At first, they performed for free, hoping each gig would bring them closer to their big break. Their hard work paid off when they eventually got a chance to record with the small label Lupine Records, but their early singles, Tears of Sorrow and Pretty Baby, failed to make much impact. Things took a turn when Florence suddenly stepped away from the group without explanation. Her bandmates, Mary and Diana, were confused and fearful that all their hard work was slipping away. What they didn't know was that Florence was battling something far deeper than anyone could imagine. In the summer of 1960, Florence's life took a dark turn. She was assaulted by Reggie Harding, a local high school basketball star, at knife point in an abandoned parking lot. She kept the trauma to herself, withdrawing from her friends and locking herself in her room for weeks. Though she eventually confided in her bandmates, they couldn't fully understand the depth of her pain. Florence, once the bright and joyful spirit of the group, was now a changed woman, distant, moody, and struggling to cope with the aftermath of the attack. As the group's dream of breaking into the music industry continued, they found themselves at a crossroads. Diana Ross used her connections to arrange an audition with Berry Gordy at Motown, but the iconic producer wasn't immediately sold. He advised the girls to return after finishing high school, and though the rejection stung, the group pressed on. They hung around Motown, learning the ins and outs of the business, sneaking into recording sessions, and contributing as background singers, all the while trying to make themselves visible to the industry. In 1961, the Primettes finally signed with Motown, but with one condition: they had to change their name. Florence, always the strong-willed one, chose the Supremes, a name that would soon become synonymous with Motown and pop music history. Diana Ross, however, wasn't thrilled with the name, but it stuck, and on January 15, 1961, the Supremes officially joined the Motown roster. The early years were far from glamorous. The Supremes struggled to find success, releasing 8 singles that all failed to chart. They were dubbed the no-hit Supremes within the label, and it seemed as though they might never break through. The only slight success came with Buttered Popcorn, a song featuring Florence as the lead vocalist, which became a minor hit in the Midwest. However, it was not enough to push the group into the spotlight. Then, in early 1962, Florence's life took another unexpected turn. She was temporarily loaned to the Marvelettes after their lead singer, Wanda Young, took maternity leave. Upon her return, the group had lost its original fourth member, Barbara Martin, leaving the Supremes a trio. Despite the setbacks, their persistence paid off when they signed a deal with Motown. In 1963, Berry Gordy made a controversial decision that would forever alter the group's dynamic. He chose Diana Ross as the lead vocalist. Florence, who had always been the powerhouse singer of the group, felt the sting of this decision. Ross's softer, more pop-friendly voice was seen as more commercially viable, and Gordy's gamble paid off. In 1964, Where Did Our Love Go became the Supremes' first #1 hit on the Billboard Hot 100, marking the beginning of their unprecedented success. Over the next few years, the Supremes scored 10 more #1 hits, solidifying their position as one of Motown's biggest acts. They became known for their perfectly choreographed performances and polished image, but behind the scenes, Florence struggled with the growing tension between her and the other members. As Diana Ross became the star of the group, Florence began to feel increasingly marginalized. She had been the leader, the driving force behind the Supremes, but now she found herself pushed into the background. As the tension built, Florence's coping mechanism became alcohol. She began drinking more frequently, and her performances began to suffer. Missing rehearsals, showing up late, and engaging in arguments with Ross and Wilson, her behavior became more erratic. Berry Gordy, frustrated by Florence's increasing unreliability, began quietly replacing her with Marlene Barrow of the Andantes, Motown's backup singers. By April 1967, Florence's days with the Supremes were numbered. In July 1967, Florence performed with the Supremes for the last time at the Flamingo Hotel in Las Vegas. She had been drinking before the show, and when she took the stage, her performance was erratic and unfocused. Berry Gordy, seeing enough, ordered her to leave immediately and return to Detroit. Her time with the Supremes had come to an abrupt end. A few days later, Cindy Birdsong was brought in to replace her, and Florence was officially fired from the group she had helped build. Her departure marked the beginning of a heartbreaking decline. Without the structure of Motown, Florence struggled to rebuild her career. She tried to launch a solo career but found little success. Her marriage to Tommy Chapman, one of Motown's chauffeurs, added to her personal troubles. By the early 1970s, she was financially broke, battling depression, and living on welfare. She tried to reclaim her place in the industry, even suing Motown in 1973. Alleging that Diana Ross had plotted to push her out of the group. Her case was dismissed, and soon she was pawning her jewelry just to survive. In 1974, the media began to pick up on Florence's tragic fall from grace. Fans sent letters of support, offering sympathy and even invitations for her to appear on talk shows to share her story. But Florence, broken and isolated, couldn't find solace in the public's sympathy. She gave a final performance in June 1975, at a benefit concert, and received a standing ovation, but it was too little, too late. By early 1976, Florence's life had taken yet another painful turn. After winning a small lawsuit settlement, she bought a house and a car, but the relief was short-lived. On February 21, 1976, Florence Ballard passed away from a heart attack caused by a blood clot in her coronary artery, just months shy of her 33-year-old birthday. Over 5,000 mourners attended her funeral, but there was one presence that sparked controversy: Diana Ross. Whether or not she was invited remains unclear, but her dramatic entrance and behavior at the service were seen by some as an act of mockery. Florence's story is a haunting reminder of how the music industry can build up stars only to discard them when they no longer fit the mold. She was the foundation of the Supremes, the powerful voice that helped define the group's success, but in the end, she was left behind, her legacy overshadowed by those who benefited from her talents. Florence Ballard was more than just a member of the Supremes, she was their heart. And yet, in death, as in life, she was forgotten by the industry she helped shape.